The Rococo style is often called the style of the woman, but it can also be associated with King Louis XV. Remember, Louis XV became king when he was only 5 years old, and he reigned from 1723 to his death in 1774. He was a great-grandson of Louis XIV. He married Maria Leszczyńska, a Polish princess. During Louis XV's reign, people were heavily taxed. He also lost the colonies of Canada and India. Now you'll remember that Louis XIV had amazing control over his court, but Louis XV did not. They often said that the royal court of Louis XV was filled with intrigue, vice, corruptness, and constant pleasure-seeking. The term Rococo comes from roquille, which means rock work, and coquet, which means shell. During the Louis XV reign, we see an explosion of furniture forms. Many of the feminine shapes that were reflected in fashion are also reflected in the curvilinear forms of the furniture pieces. We also see this focus on comfort, an intimate lifestyle. Remember that constant pleasure-seeking. The forms are much lighter in scale than previous styles that we've studied. It is also important to note that during this time, it is mandatory for craftsmen to stamp their furniture forms. And this is very helpful for historical reasons because we're able to identify the time period that these furniture pieces were created. Louis XV had countless mistresses, but it is said that his favorite mistress was Madame de Pompadour. She was considered the first mistress to the king, and she was influential as a patron of the arts and affairs of state. She was also known as the main creator of the Rococo style, and she solidifies the Louis XV style. At this time, I'd like you to pause the recorded lecture and watch a video on the mistresses of Louis XV, and we'll get an inside glimpse into some of their living quarters and furniture pieces. During the Le Régent style, we see this transition from Baroque to Rococo. First, Rococo characteristics appear on Baroque forms, and then we see it evolve into lighter, less formal spaces with naturalistic motifs. Many of the Rococo design elements will be asymmetrical. We will see many naturalistic motifs like flowers, shells, and tendrils. We will also see curving lines. And then we will see this naturalistic ornamentation applied to interior walls, panels, finishes, ceilings, textiles, lighting, and furniture. So really we see it in every part of an interior space. So we see this synthesis of interior decoration, furniture, and decorative arts all having this application of Rococo forms. This is an example of the Louis XV bousserie, and you can see the intertwining of natural elements throughout, and it has a very naturalistic design. It is also very light and airy with the white background and the very delicate carving. Here we're seeing parquet floor, and remember we first saw this during the Louis XIV style. In the image on the right, we're also seeing this gilded wall paneling with a very naturalistic motif in the center. Chinoiserie is the French word for Chinese art, and this is where we see Chinese motifs applied to decorative arts. Singerie was another popular motif during the French Rococo style. This is where we see monkeys participating in human activities, and we would see these images found on textiles, furniture forms, and ceramics. Here's a beautiful example of singerie in a chateau. The image on the left is showing the restoration of the wall singerie, and these images down here show the monkeys participating in human activities. And you can see the image on the right, and overall the design is very light and airy and naturalistic. One key design feature of the Rococo style is asymmetry. Asymmetrical designs will appear balanced, but they will not be perfect mirror images of the other side. So here we're seeing it on the door panel. although the door panel appears balanced, you can see that we have this slight asymmetry down here. And then we also see it on the front piece of this furniture, the asymmetry on the ormolu that's used as decoration. Louis XV, or Rococo style furniture, is fairly easy to identify. A few characteristics that are going to help us identify the style is that we have asymmetrical curves. We see pieces that are smaller and less formal. Remember, there was that focus on comfort. We also see matching sets, which became very popular during English Restoration, and then we see it kind of move through in future styles. Overall, the furniture pieces are going to be made out of wood, but we will often see them gilded too. We'll see Gabrielle legs with a roll-style foot, and here is an example of that. It's where it curves up, and then we have this small piece down here that will help prop it off the floor. We also see marquetry, lacquer, ormolu. We'll look at the Bombay, chess, and serpentine shapes. Also, during the Louis XV style, just like in Louis XIV style, we see excellent craftsmanship. We will also see a few new furniture pieces emerge, like lounging furniture pieces, game tables, small tables, and ladies' furniture, focus on writing furniture pieces. The image on the right is showing a Louis XV gilt wood stool. It has the cabriole style legs. It was made during the mid-18th century. So notice all of the natural carving throughout and the shell motif right here in the center. And then also notice that we do not have any stretchers on this piece. This is a Louis XV chaise, which remember is an armless French chair. It has a curved back and seat rail. It also has carved cabriole legs with a shoe foot. This is the shoe portion right here. Also notice that when we look at the cabriole leg, you'll notice this slight curve, and often this portion right here is called the knee of the leg because it looks very natural. If you had like your leg bent, this portion would be the knee. This is a Louis XV fauteuil, which remember is a French chair with arms. Let's start at the top and walk through the distinguishing features of the chair. First, we have a carved crest rail. Then we have an upholstered seat and back. And then we have an upholstered armrest. And when we see an arm that has fabric over it, that is called a manchette. We also have open arm, or it's actually open underneath the arms. And the arms are set back from the front part of the seat. That's another important distinguishing feature. In the carved seat rail right here, we see a leaf and floral ornament. So that's another distinguishing feature, is using those naturalistic motifs. We have a cabriole leg ending in a roll, and then we have the shoe at the bottom. And then the textile we can see from the back is chinoiserie, which remember is the Chinese motifs. This is a bergère, and a bergère is an excellent example of the French Rococo style and that focus on comfort. A bergère is an upholstered armchair, but it's closed underneath the arms. It has a loose seat cushion. The seat is very wide and deep, so it could accommodate a woman that was wearing a large skirt. It is also closed in the back, so we see that it's different than the fauteuil because it's not open underneath the arms, and then we don't have that opening between the back and the seat. There are 3 types of bergères that we'll look at. Something that emerges during the Rococo style is painted furniture. And so we will see some of these Rococo styles gilded or painted. Here we're seeing 2 bergère style chairs with painted frames. Now we're going to go through the different types of bergères. The one on the left is a bergère confessional, and this is very similar to a wing chair. There are shallow wings that are along the side of it with a very high back. The frames can sometimes be natural, painted, or gilded. A bergère en gondole is an arched horseshoe-shaped back chair. You can see that the back has this curve, so it's kind of all one piece and it's curved, which is different than the bergère confessional because you can see that has a flat back and then the 2 sides come out at a 90-degree angle, where this is all curved. But notice some of the same characteristics, that the back and sides are upholstered. There's no opening between the seat and the back, and the arms are closed. Here we're seeing a fauteuil de bureau, which is basically just a desk chair. And what's unique about this piece is that we're seeing it in the design that it has. Look at the placement of the legs, how we have that center leg and that very rounded back. And where they're using caning on the one on the right for the back, but then we're seeing it upholstered on the left. This is one of my favorite pieces from the French Rococo style. It's called the Veilleuse, which is a bergère with a padded and upholstered curved crest rail. And this piece right up here extends several inches beyond the back stiles. And this would be used so that someone could basically sit behind you, rest their arms on this padded area up here, and watch you as you're playing card games. So remember, during the French Rococo time period, there was so much pleasure seeking, and they were playing a lot of games and having fun and having parties in the royal court. And so they had to create furniture pieces to accommodate all this fun. You do not need to identify these chairs for your test, but I thought that these were really fun. These are a few chairs that I found from the Rococo style. And remember that I said we have this explosion of furniture forms. We also see furniture forms being developed for very specific needs. Okay, so the image on the left is actually for a hairdresser's chair. And so you can see how this middle section right here dips down and curves. So it's very similar to a shampoo bowl that we would see in a salon today. So someone could rest their neck on that and turn their head back. The one in the middle is actually a barber's chair, and someone could lean their head here, and then someone could shave them from behind. And then the image on the right was designed for a very specific purpose. This is for someone that would be playing a cello at court, and notice how one arm is higher than the other. A Marquise is basically like a chair and a half. It's an extra wide chair to accommodate very large skirts, or it could also fit two small people. And so it's very similar to a fauteuil, except that it has an extra wide seat. This is a canapé or a sofa. In this style, we're seeing that it has a cabriole leg and shoe, and then it also has this very decorative seat rail and crest rail that help to frame this very beautiful needlepoint upholstery. But notice again, there are no stretchers at the bottom. It has a very light, airy design. And I think really removing those stretchers help to communicate that very light, airy design. Now you'll remember that I said that we see this development of lounge furniture, and the Veilleuse is a great example of that. Veilleuse is the French word for old. And in this design, we see this continuous serpentine crest rail that starts at the top and slopes downward. And you can see it's very delicate, the overall framing of this piece. Usually these would be made in pairs, and they would be facing each other in front of a fireplace, and often they would include a very large decorative thick pillow for more comfort. One way to describe this could possibly be look at this as a bergère en gondole, and it's extended on one side. So see how it kind of has a rounded back. A duchesse is another type of lounge furniture, and it has an extended seat rail and low footboard at the lower end. So you can see that it's like the bergère style chair. It has that same delicate framing, and then the curving legs and the shoe at the bottom. But then it extends the seat rail out, and then we see it kind of come up here, and that forms the footboard piece. Usually it will have 8 legs. It will have that very naturalistic carved frame. Sometimes you'll see it with the manchette style armrest and then cabriole legs. This is the Duchesse Brisée. Brisée means broken. And so here we see the bergère chair, and it has a separate piece that can be attached to it, and it's a separate long bench seat and low footboard. So it looks very similar to the Duchesse that we saw on the previous slide, but it is broken, so it's the Duchesse Brisée. This is the Chaise lounge Brisée. This is a chaise lounge that is divided into two parts. So if this piece was all connected together, it would be a chaise lounge. But when it's separated into two different parts, it is called the chaise lounge Brisée, which is basically like a bergère styled chair with an extended bench. How it's different than the Duchesse Brisée is that it doesn't have that extended footboard at the bottom. It also can sometimes be much longer than the Duchesse Brisée. So there are a lot of chair forms in the French Rococo style. Need to be able to identify all of the ones that we discuss in this lecture. This slide right here puts together all of those lounge pieces together, and it will be a great study guide for you as you review all of these different forms. Now let's move on to a few table forms from the Louis XV Rococo style. Many of the naturalistic motifs that we saw applied to the chair forms are also going to be applied to the Louis XV style tables. So you can see the naturalistic motifs. We will see some asymmetry, especially in some of the storage tables, but we also noticed a few other things. There is no stretcher at the bottom, and that will help us to identify the Louis XV style also. This unique piece from the Louis XV style is a console table that could be attached to the wall, and notice that there are no back legs. And so we see this very curvilinear design style, naturalistic motifs, and then we also see that cabriole leg on the image on the left. This is a Louis XV Commode designed by Charles Cresson, and this was veneered with king wood. Now remember that he was one of the master cabinet makers during the Les Regents style, and then moving into the Rococo style. In this design, we see two rows of drawers that are about 14 inches from the floor. We also see rounded styles that continue into the cabriole style leg. And then usually the commodes would be finished off at the top with some type of stone, often marble. And then the ormolu is also very prominent on this furniture piece, and it really shows many of the naturalistic carvings and helps to accentuate those. And then we also see, look at this dragon motif on the front of the furniture form. This was a commode that was designed for Louis XV and looks very similar to the previous slide, with the abundance of ormolu and naturalistic carvings contrasting with the wood tone. The image on the left, the bottom left, is showing the original engraving of the design. And many of these commode forms would also have a separate side door, so that you could have almost like a secret compartment on the side of the commode. The Bombay chest was a popular chest during the Rococo time period. Bombay means bulging. And this is where we see pieces of wood that are glued together, then planned to create a curved shape on the front of the piece. And what's unique about this curve is that it curves in both horizontal and vertical planes. So you can see that the front of this piece is curving horizontally and vertically. And then we would also see it often finished with a curved marble top. Now there is this division between the drawers, but sometimes this can be concealed with the ormolu, so you can barely see that division, and you almost wonder if it's a functional furniture piece. But notice that the overall style is very light. We do not have any structural elements at the bottom. We just have the four legs supporting it. And those legs with that cabriole style, that very thin style, give it that very light style form. And here's an example of a Bombay commode with lacquer panels. And then we also see, the application of the asymmetrical design concept using that ormolu. So the overall piece seems very balanced, but that asymmetrical design is how we help to distinguish this between Louis XIV and Louis XV. This is a bureau plat, which remember is a flat top desk. We see the ormolu communicating those naturalistic motifs and contrasting beautifully with the wood below. We also see the chinoiserie, which remember is the Chinese motifs on the front of many of the drawers and the side panels. Now remember I said that tables were designed for certain functions. This is an example of a mechanical table, and I actually have a video that goes into detail about all of the different compartments that would be created in these mechanical tables. So I want you to pause the recorded lecture and watch the video I have on the mechanical table. I also think it's important to note just all of the details that you saw in the video, but you also see here, that every inch of this furniture piece was thoughtfully planned. We have floral marquetry, we have geometric style marquetry, we have ormolu and naturalistic patterns. And so these pieces would take years to build, to design and build. And so I hope that gives you a great appreciation for this style. This is the Bureau de Roi, which is the desk of the king that was specifically designed for Louis XV. It is very similar to a roll-top desk. We see floral marquetry throughout. We also see Sèvres porcelain inserts here on the side, and I'll talk about that in a few moments. Now this desk took 9 years to complete. It was started by Aubin and then finished by Resinier. Now this was very similar design concept to a mechanical desk in that there were very intricate features to the design. For example, a quarter turn of a key would lock the desk in drawers, and then there was a separate drawer that would refill the ink. So again, a lot of thought was put into the design of these pieces, not only to communicate the Rococo style, but to also serve a very specific purpose. At this time, I'd like you to pause the recorded lecture and watch the video I have on the desk of the king. And this is giving you a close-up view of some of the design elements on the desk. Notice the floral marquetry, the Sèvres porcelain, and then we also see the ormolu design, and this is actually created to hold a candlestick. And then also notice the naturalistic bousserie in the background. There were actually 69 different bed styles during the French Rococo time period. I'm only going to focus on a few. This is the Lit-à-la-Turque, which is a Turkish style bed. It has high scrolled ends, bolster pillows, and a tester that is attached to the wall. So that is the main way we identify this bed, is by that tester that is attached to the wall. This is the Lit-à-la-Polonaise. L-I-T, or lait, means bed in French. Now remember that Louis XV married a Polish princess, so that's how we get this Polish style bed. This is different than the previous slide that I showed you, is because the canopy is actually attached to the bed, so we can see that it's all one piece and that tester is not attached to the wall. So it has a full canopy that's attached to the bed frame. This one is carved in gilded wood, and it's actually shown with its original damask style coverings. And this is the Dauphine's bedroom at Fontainebleau. Here are a few modern versions of the Lit-à-la-Polonaise. And so we see on the image on the right a more modern version and then a traditional style. We definitely have some budding divas living in these rooms. And I couldn't resist this sweet puppy sitting on the Lit-à-la-Polonaise dog bed. And for all our cat lovers, here's a Lit-à-la-Polonaise cat bed. Toile de Jouy was a popular motif that was used on fabrics during the Rococo design style. It was originally designed by Philipp Oberkampf, who was a German cloth printer that settled in Jouy near Versailles. He created pictorial designs of one color on a light background. So the image on the left is showing the white background, and then we would have a monochromatic color scheme portraying the different styles. It was very fashionable and became an important part of the royal workshop. Early textiles were usually done in deep rows with Chinese scenes. Here are a few modern examples of the toile. Now let's do a quick review of this room, just to go over a few of the furniture pieces and then interior design elements. First, let's start with the interior design elements. Notice the bousserie on the wall. It's very common for there to be a white background and then the gilded naturalistic carvings on the bousserie. We also will often see that the mantle piece of the fireplace is just a little bit higher than the dado. So you can see that, remember, the dado is a lower portion of the wall. Here it comes the chair rail, and then the mantle is slightly higher. Also in these interiors, we see this focus of bringing natural light in, but also using certain design elements to reflect light or multiply light. So you will often see candles mounted right next to mirrors and chandeliers aligned with mirrors so to help reflect or multiply the light. Now, a few of the furniture pieces in this room. Starting off here in the left, we see the fauteuil. And remember that the fauteuil is an French armchair. We know that it's a fauteuil because it is open underneath the arms, and it's also open underneath the seat, where the seat and the back meet. We also see the manchette style arm rest here. Now moving over to the desk area, we have a bureau plat, which remember is a flat top desk. We see the cabriole style legs and the ormolu, conveying some of those naturalistic motifs and contrasting with the wood below. And then we see the fauteuil de bureau, which remember is a desk chair that would be placed next to a bureau plat, and we see the caning on the back. So I think this will be a good slide for you to review for your test. Also, I want you to, in addition to some of the other videos that I'm having you watch, I want you to watch a video on the Sèvres porcelain. And this is a very specific type of porcelain that was used especially during the Rococo time period and in future design styles from the French designs. And so that's important that you watch that and understand how it was made and how it was used in decorative arts during this time period.